Welcome to the Prophets of IT. I'm Jim Punzenberger, your host, creator of Managed Prospecting System, and author of $0 Advertising Strategies. This is the show where I sit down with the sharpest minds in technology to uncover real, unfiltered strategies that drive business growth and save you from costly IT mistakes. Profits of IT is brought to you by my day job, so to speak, managedprospectingsystem.com, the only IT marketing agency bold enough to let you write your own guarantee for us. If you want more qualified sales appointments in your calendar without gambling your marketing budget or relying on inconsistent referrals, visit managedprospectingsystem.com after the show. Today, I'm talking with a true veteran in the tech world. Peter has been working with computers since 1965. He started his own business in 1979 and has been helping companies solve tech issues and business problems ever since. He's written software that has sold hundreds of thousands of copies, worked with Nobel Peace Prize winners, and built a career on challenging the idea that newer is better. Peter, you've been in IT since before it was even called IT. How did you get started and what kept you in the game so long?
Well, I really got started a long time ago, 65, and I was actually in fifth grade. My parents knew I was interested in computers. There's a lot of television about them, and I got a 3-bit computer for Christmas. Not a byte,
A
a
bit.
3-bit. Yeah, so out from 0 to 7, it was plastic, and you could actually program it. So I learned binary on that thing. It was called a Digicomp. Sears sold it back when there was a Sears.
Wow. I have no idea what that thing even is. That was before, way before I was even born.
Like a red and white plastic device about yay big and had a little crank that you used to add things up. And it actually worked. So it was pretty cool.
Sounds like it.
No,
And then
no
you,
electricity.
no, yeah. So it actually was powered by the crank?
Yeah, that's right. There were some rubber bands and there's a way you could program it so it could do things like addition or subtraction or multiplication or play a simple game, and we're talking real simple, kind of like tic-tac-toe.
Yeah. Nothing like, nothing like the software of today.
No, yeah, that's right. And in high school we had an IBM 7, I think it was a 1701, but we could program that with cards, punch cards. And
Uh-huh.
so I had the opportunity to program that in Fortran with punch cards. That was in the 70s, and really learned a lot of Fortran and started to use digital equipment, mini computers, starting around 75 or so. I was a research assistant in a physics lab and um, did a lot of Fortran programming. A lot of it was real-time data acquisition. So we were getting data from physics experiments, analyzing them, um, putting them out onto paper in the form of graphs. So I really stuck with physics and scientific programming until about 89 and worked for Fermilab for 8 years, doing again Fortran and C, real-time data acquisition. One of the projects that I worked on at Fermilab was a project called RT Multi, and that was a modular data acquisition system. So there were different subroutines or programmatic pieces that kind of fit together. And all those high energy physics experiments are different. So what they used to do before RT Multi was invented was to set a few graduate students to the task of like writing the whole piece of software from the ground up. And then afterwards, what they could do is just adapt one or two modules, and the rest of it was the same because a lot of the problems that new physics experiment had to do were similar to a lot of the other problems that other physics experiment had to do. There's only one or two unique things in it. So that was my first encounter with modular programming,
Wow,
and I did the
quite
business
interesting.
on the side.
And yeah, so fast forward now, what, 40 years?
Well, it's like since I left the lab, it's been about 36 years. I started the business when I was still in grad school and ran it on the side for like about 12 years. And 89 did that full time. And, left the lab and worked for myself full time. Started that. And I really didn't know much about business at that time.
I bet. I mean, I think that's common when somebody starts something, they uh, learn more about it as they go.
Right. I knew, the technical aspects of programming and that sort of thing, but I didn't know how to get customers or, kind of how to relate to customers, how to relate to other vendors. So that was a lot of learning I had to do.
So, you said that software rusts. Can you explain what you mean by that and how it
Yeah,
affects most businesses and how most, I guess, business owners overlook it?
yeah, yeah. So I wrote a blog posting called Software Rust, but it was something I kind of realized back in the 80s that as you think of software as sort of like a fixed thing, like a book. Yeah, like Charles Dickens, David Copperfield. I mean, if you look at any edition of that, it's going to be pretty much the same. But the way it doesn't, there's no such thing as software that exists in a vacuum. It always has to be installed on a piece of hardware, and uh, all the software that's commonly used today has to interact with other software like the operating system and printer drivers and other pieces of software like Microsoft Office or databases or whatever. And so you have this piece of software that's like a fixed piece of code. And as the other parts of the environment change, like maybe Windows goes from Windows 95 to Windows 10, then the software itself loses its ability to communicate to those pieces of the environment. So it starts to break down. It starts to develop problems and bugs that the original authors didn't have any idea would be present because they couldn't predict the future. So that's what I mean by software
Uh-huh.
rust.
And so how does one uh, prevent software from rusting, or what's the solution? Can you get out a can of WD-40 and spray your computer with it?
No, really, you can't. I mean, there's really no solution yet. I mean, if you keep everything exactly the same, then things will continue to run the same, but to keep everything exactly the same is almost impossible. Like in some cases, we've had companies run their old XP Pro dependent software on virtual machine so that they would be protected from the security threats that XP Pro faces, when it's connected to the internet. So there are workarounds and ways to mitigate this software obsolescence, but there's no perfect solution. So it's kind of a case by case basis. And sometimes if it's a popular piece of software and you have source code for it, you can make modifications and patches that will eliminate some of the problems, some of the worst problems. So that's something that I'm very good at.
Cool. Um, and I know you've also mentioned that many people overcomplicate it when they buy a computer, and that you have a simpler way that you recommend. Want to touch on that?
Yeah, yeah. So I think the typical way people will buy a computer is that they'll sort of look at their budget and they'll say, okay, now what's sort of the best computer that I can get for that? And they don't take any weight to what they actually need it for. So the first thing you should do is write down a list of what you're going to actually need that computer for. Are you going to put, QuickBooks on it? Are you going to put some high-speed games on it? Do you intend to just browse the internet? So there are different applications for different computers. So the first thing you should do is figure out what you're going to use it for. And then based on that, then you can decide, how much disk space you need, how fast you need it to be. And that's it. That first step, hardly anybody does it. So
Uh-huh.
do that, it'll simplify things a lot.
Got it. So basically, don't just go out and look at the cost of computers and actually determine what you're going to use it for and what you need from it. More like you would, I guess, when you're buying a car, you don't just uh, say, okay, I can, I just gonna go buy a car. You're gonna say, okay, I need to take my four kids and a dog to
Right,
and be able to fit all the soccer gear in it also.
right, exactly.
So also you've built a strong network of experts to help solve problems. Um, how did you do that? And uh, what advice do you have for others in this area?
Yeah, I think that the advice I have is do as much networking as possible and as soon as possible. Avoid a temptation that like a lot of smart people have of trying to figure everything out on their own. Um, the reason is that you'll often solve problems other people have already solved and waste a lot of time. Nobody has really any time to waste. So how I built the network is just kind of coming to that realization at some point, back in the late 80s when I was out on my own and I was working on computer problems and I noticed there were other IT companies and let's say they had a solution for what kind of Novell server setup and workstations. They've come up with proposals fairly quickly because often they've done it, like 10 times in the past. So, I mean, the one way to increase your business is just do one thing and get really good at it and just sort of repeat and, make continually small improvements in that. But the other way is to meet people who can do it for you and hire them or ask them the right questions. And I found a group for the thing I was working on at the time, SBT accounting system. There was something called Section 20 on CompuServe. And so the SBT Pro Series experts, they tended to hang out there and you could ask questions and then people would answer the questions because there's a sharing of idea, collaboration, sort of a hive mind. And since then, the idea of a hive mind has become a lot more popular, and there are a lot more groups. And one of the other groups I'm in, I'd recommend that to any IT provider, is the ASCII group, ACII,
Uh-huh.
SCII, and that's a group of about 1,300 computer consultants and consulting firms and MSPs. And there's one or two lawyers that specialize with helping IT people. So
Cool.
it's an excellent source of information. There's no way that one person can know everything, but you can know where to go to find a question.
So you also mentioned that there's a password manager called Keeper that you're excited about.
Yeah,
I want to tell us more about that.
I would say I get probably 50 support calls a year, um, helping people recover passwords. So they forget their password, and it's a process to retrieve the password. Usually, if you don't remember the password, Google or whatever the software package you're trying to get into has a procedure where they can validate that you have the right to get the new password, but it's a hassle. So
Sure
what do
is.
what do? Do you write it down on a piece of paper and then you lose a piece of paper, so you're still stuck? Or do you write it down on a spreadsheet and stick it on your hard drive? Well, that's a really bad idea because if your computer ever gets hacked, they're going to look for that type of thing. And there's certain characteristics, they're going to find it, and then they'll know all your passwords. So that's not a good idea. So this Keeper software, and there's some other products too, like Dashlane, but they store your passwords in a double encrypted cloud database, and you have to remember one password. Once you remember that one password, then Keeper will return the password that you're looking for whatever website you're looking for. There's basically a couple buttons you can click and it will fill in your username and password on a website or a program. So it saves a lot of time. And with Keeper, there's some hierarchical features. So I can sell Keeper to an organization with, let's say, 20 employees, and one administrator can have the master password for everybody in that organization, or maybe everybody in the organization except for certain software programs where only the person that's using that software program uses it. Anyway, there's a lot of granularity to the security, but
Uh,
you can control it very well.
so as an organization, you can control who has access to what passwords.
Yeah, yeah, and you have a systematic way of storing it, which is not vulnerable to attack.
Sounds very interesting. And so if somebody was wanting to learn more about Keeper or what you do, what would be a good way of getting in touch with you?
Oh, well, they can go to our website, pcmethods.com. There's lots of contact us information on that. I mean, so there's like phone numbers and emails right on the website. So I am also on WhatsApp and Twitter and LinkedIn.
Well, we'll include the website in the show notes so people can just check the show notes for your website.
Yeah. And I like to answer questions. So if somebody has an odd, they say, well, I want to do this, and I've got this piece of software and I got that piece of software, and they don't talk to each other. What do is there any way we can get these two things to talk to each other so I don't have to re-enter by hand? And I love to work on that type of product.
Great. Well, Peter, thank you for sharing your experience and insights today. Any final thoughts?
I think it's important to keep active, keep learning. It gets frustrating sometimes, because there's always a new thing to learn, but it also keeps your mind active. And that's really good.
Well, thank you again. And remember, Profits of IT is sponsored by ManageProspectingSystem.com. the fastest way to get more qualified IT sales appointments on your calendar without risking expensive ad spend or wasting time. Check out managedprospectingsystem.com. And until next time, I'm Jim Punzenberger. Thanks for watching and stay hydrated and caffeinated.